Okay, my name's Tony Cohen, and I am in sunny, well, it's not, it's dark now, San Diego. And last minute, I got asked to put together a leadership coaching call with no plan. So I've got notes, finally, okay? It's likely not going to be what you think it is. I'm just going to basically tell you my background. I have never been to a management school. I barely finished school. And all my kind of leadership, and there's one thing about that, do we see ourselves as leaders? You don't have to. You can lead people without calling yourself a leader. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with terms like mentor and all that. It doesn't sit well with me. I feel a little bit awkward. However, I want to tell you my story. Going back to 1986. So no leadership coaching, no nada, end up in Toronto, Canada, and freezing cold, out knocking on doors, selling water filters door to door. And my manager, team leader, whatever the term was back then, was a guy called Big Jimmy. And Big Jimmy looked like a biker, and he drove this big old Oldsmobile 88, and like six of us would cram in it, and we'd go and find some area and go and knock on doors. And I'd sucked at it for it took me 3 weeks to get my first deal. Normally people do it within 3 days. 3 weeks, if you've not done it, you've quit. I was desperate, and I knew people were doing well at it, and I just couldn't fit it in. And I asked for help. And someone came and watched me, and his name was Pat Murphy. And I don't want to go into that detail. That's coaching for another day. But I asked for help. Leadable, coachable, teachable. To lead, you got to be all three. Leadable, coachable, teachable. All slight variations of the same thing. Asked for help. He gave me an exercise to do. And it was very much pertaining to communication. And I did the exercise. I was starving beyond starving. I would go into the office early in the hope that someone would buy me breakfast. I would go knock on doors in areas which was mainly Italian and Portuguese, because I knew they'd always have some food on. There'd always be some food in the house, and they'd always feed me. That was my motivation. So I did this, and I got my first client, and then next week I got 2, and I got 3. And I got good at it. I was never the best. I was always sort of around the top 20%, but this was straight selling. Kind of the polar opposite of what we're doing here. Knocking on a door, walking in it there and then, and walking out with the order for $1,000, $3,000 there and then. And I really had to master the art, and I had to knock on a lot of doors. And to this day, I've still got, if you ever meet me, you'll notice I've got segs on the outside of my knuckles from banging on doors. And anyway, my manager, coach, whatever, not really a coach, he just didn't show up one day. So Tim, who started and owned the company, said, Tom, you've got to take these guys out today, and you've got to lead them. That was my leadership coaching. And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done it. And he said, no, you've got to do it. You've got, it's relatively new. You're the most experienced guy here. And I went, I'm not doing it. And he said, well, you can borrow my Cadillac. I went, okay. I said, but I don't know what to do. And he said, do what Jimmy does. Jimmy's not here. Do what he does. I said, Jimmy don't do shit. He basically drops us off and leaves. And he said, okay, do what Jimmy does. I don't care. That was my whole leadership coaching 101. So we get out to this area, and it's an area I knew, and I kind of mapped it out. Had a bit of a plan. You're on that street. You're on the opposite side of the street to him. You're on that one. And there was someone new that had been struggling, that hadn't got any business. And I said, and you're coming with me. And I went, no, I've got to go make some money. I went, how much have you made any? No, you're coming with me. Why am I coming with you? I said, because I get bored when I'm alone. So we'll just have some fun. And I got a bunch of business, and within 2 hours, he was out knocking on doors, and he got his first business. That was something I implemented ever since then. That aligns with things like 3-way texting or 3-way calls today. It's C1, C2, C3 coaching. I do, you watch, we do together. you watch, I'm here if you need help. And I didn't know it was labeled as that back then, but it was always, before you're allowed to do it on your own, you're gonna watch me. And the parallel with that to three-waying on this is you watch enough three-way texts. You don't need someone actually telling you what to do. You'll feel the flow of it. Same with three-way calls. That's exactly the same. So I did that. Within a month, I had 80% of the company wanting to work with me because I was getting rapid results coaching without really knowing what I was doing, like C1 coaching. And then, I'm like in my early 20s and the ego starts to kick in, but that was okay. I think I'm making all the money in the world. In reality, it was like a couple of $1,000s a week. And then all of a sudden, someone who was running our Montreal office, brand new, it just crumbled. He couldn't do it. So Tim says, hey, do you want to run an office in Montreal? I'd never been in Montreal before. He said, you're European, you speak French, don't you? I went, oui, which was, I did 3 years at school, I'd forgotten all of it. I ended up in Montreal with a massive ego. He who has the gold makes the rules. And I basically lost it completely. Like everything went wrong. So what I want to talk about is, as part of that, there's not one type of leader. So you don't need to be like Jocko Willink, who's not my type of leader. However, Simon Sinek is. I've got a great friend called Dov Baron. He's what he calls it heart-centered leadership. And we're just talking about this. Some people are all about the head and the thought process. Some people are about, hey, how can I support you best? If you've ever had a conversation with Mitch, you'll know exactly where I'm coming from on that. So, there's so many books right now on leadership. There's so many YouTubes on leadership, and they're all contradicting each other. Is find someone that you sort of can connect with from here, not from there. Well, I'm going to follow Jocko because he's a former SEAL and I was in the military. You know what? The military is not the military. Is not the military. It's all different. There's some militaries in the world where the leaders lead from the back effectively. If you look at a wolf pack, the strongest wolves are always at the back to protect the weakest and the oldest. So getting back onto this, I screwed up everything. And I basically had to leave the country. 3 years later, I get a call back from Tim. Hey, we're in a new business, blah, 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 blah. Come over. He told me some ridiculous numbers I didn't believe, but I knew Tim, so I did it anyway. And I said, listen, if I'm here, so I had a fun time in Toronto. I had a fun time in Montreal. If I'm here, you've got to stick me somewhere where I will not get distracted. Like, don't put me in a town that's full of really cool restaurants and like everything that goes with that. Like, put me in a shithole. If anyone is from Hamilton, Ontario watching this, I apologize. However, he said, right, we're going to Hamilton. Okay, never been there. Hamilton's an old rundown steel town. I guess it's a bit like, there's a valley in Pennsylvania, I just forget the name, where all the steel mills closed and there's all kinds of unemployment. Hamilton's is parallel to that. And this is in about 93, I want to say. A lot of unemployment, which for me was a lot of opportunity. And I drive there with Tim, and it was a rundown town. And he said, here's the office. And I said, this is not an office. It's like what's known as up the mountain in the middle of nowhere, like in an industrial park. I said, this is not an office, Tim. He said, it is. It's got a phone in it. I said, it's also got a pit for changing oil in cars in it. He said, well, just sweep all the garbage into the pit and we'll get someone to cement over it and you've got an office. I've dropped everything on 2 days' notice. Talk about flexing your AQ. I got rid of my home, my car, everything on 2 days' notice to be dumped in a town where I know absolutely no one, with a garage that he tells me is an office. Oh, it's got a chair, it's got a desk, you're good to go. I'm like, we had businesses all over Canada. In 8 weeks from zero, and this is not about me, this is about leadership styles. It's about, in 8 weeks, we beat everyone in the country in 8 weeks. And there were some big hitters in that. And if I look back now and what's the biggest things, you know, Tim's thing was like, you got to have a meeting every day. You got to have a meeting every day. You got to have a meeting every day. Some of these guys were driving 2 hours in and 2 hours back to have a meeting. And I just said, like, that's not productive time. So sometimes you just got to adjust to see what fits. Like, you know, there are some leaders that micromanage. Like, it doesn't necessarily work with everyone. There are some people that need micromanaging. There are some people, I'm one of them, the minute you try and micromanage me, I'm going to go and just do the opposite shit anyway. That's just me personally. So you go to Hamilton, we do all this thing, and it's all going great. But if I look now at what really built the cohesion of the unit, it was the fact that everyone laughed at us. Parallels there. Everyone laughed at us. Someone told me it couldn't be done. Like, for some people, and you know, when people tell, Josh Nelson, I feel, is one of these guys. If you tell him it can't be done, he's going to go and do it just to prove you wrong. And I'm very much like that, because I was told all my life, my childhood, you won't be able to do it, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we basically did it. If I look at the cohesion, I used to meet people for breakfast on Saturday. I used to meet people for breakfast on Sunday. Sundays, if we weren't working, we used to do like 13 days on and whatever. I'd go like, hey, I've got 4 seats in my car. We're going to go on a goal setting trip. And we go to the Ferrari dealership and we go like drive down the streets and find a good restaurant. And, you know, I'd do contests on Saturdays. And at the end, like, you got to show up at the beginning and you got to show up at the end. And there'd always be like cash contests and things like that. But we'd have, whoever won the cash, we'd hang out and like play pool for a few hours. And what this did is it built a community. Parallel there. I was just chatting with Bella about, you know, going to events. It builds a community. So that being said, I want to address a couple of things. I've got a leadership t-shirt. Here you go. Is that too subtle? So if you know, wrong analogy, but if you know the story, works his way up. So we all start in the same place and we work our way through it. What I do want to talk about right now is certain pattern language. I'm doing on time. Oh, good on time. Certain pattern language. I did this call, a similar thing a few weeks ago. Whenever I see the phrase my team, I instantly don't want to do any business with them. Instantly. It's ego driven. And we've had this, and you know, credit to Nick, because he actually asked me to do this a few weeks ago. You know, we have a community. I don't want to be part of someone's team. I don't need a team. I want a community. And this applies to a lot of stuff. You know, you can look at, again, I'm just mindful not to use the company or products or anything, but, you know, we have that 60-hour thing. Look how that community's grown in 11 months. So we've got all the tools we need. What we are looking for is people like us. Our vibe attracts our tribe. You know, for some of you guys on here right now, I'm not a fit for you. But there's someone else out there that likely is. So what can happen if we get it wrong? If there's a lack of cohesion in that community, it's going to fall to bits. So, you know, we have a great local community here in San Diego, and there's no financial connection. We just hang out and have fun and do stuff. And sure, some of it's business based. However, you know, the coffee mornings, what happens on Wine Wednesdays doesn't get spoke about outside of Wine Wednesday. If you're not there, we can't talk about it. Things like that, I believe, my personal belief, is leadership. Who's going to step up and put a coffee morning together? Who's going to step up? It doesn't have to be Wine Wednesday, it could be anything. Who's going to step up and lead people on a hike? Who's going to step up? What you're going to find is people will be attracted to what you're doing, to people who are like them. It's always the same. You look at the time of year it is right now, 3 biggest New Year's resolutions: get in better shape. Make more money next year than I did this year. Third one is find a community that supports the first 2. If you look at the biggest brands on earth right now, they're all community-based. Facebook is a community. Apple is a community. Lululemon built the community before they sold any yoga pants. So that's on that. And I'm just going to touch very briefly on, you guys may not get this. My team is Manchester United. They've had a coach there who's very ego-driven. He never lasts more than, they call it third season pattern. Like the third season, his ego gets that big that things start going wrong. And that's exactly what happened. They threw him out, and this guy's a big name, Jose Mourinho, and they brought a guy in that used to play for the club as a kid and spent most of his career there, and was, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, was a sort of legend as a player. Doesn't have great management skills. However, what I saw first game, like Jose's been losing everything, this guy's been winning everything. At the end of each game, and it doesn't matter if you know this or not, but at the end of each game, when Jose Mourinho's in charge, as soon as that whistle goes, shakes hands with the other coach and walks straight off the pitch down the dressing room. Changing room, whatever you call them here. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, first game, shakes hands with the other coach, goes onto the pitch, shakes hands and hugs not only his own players, but the opposing team's players, and the, whatever you call them here, but the referee and the linesman, like everyone. And then went over to the fans, gave the applause, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, right on, Josh, all of a sudden, you could literally see from one game to the next the cohesion. You could see players playing, having fun, as opposed to players playing and literally not wanting to win. So when you're like, not my team, but when you're part of a community that wants to win, everyone has a lot more fun. So where are we at on time-wise? Going to leave you with 2 calls to action. Number 1. Oh, and by the way, just as a sidebar, you don't need to look for leaders. When you are leading, they will find you. Just think about that. You don't need to go and find them. Oh, this guy's got like 5,000 Facebook friends. This guy had this big organization. Yeah, so what? You know what? It probably comes with an ego as well. Like, look for those who are looking for you. Whatever your gel is, and it will find itself. Patience is a key thing here. You know, what's the one overriding factor? I think Ryan Lowry, Dr. Ryan Lowry now, mentioned it the other day, is like, comparing yourself to others' path is literally the beginning of failure. Like, you know, when we first started this, so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that. I just said to me, I don't give a shit what so-and-so's doing. I'm not looking at them. You know, Nike is not worried about what Puma is doing. Like, focus on your own game. Everyone's going to go at their own pace. Everyone's going to go in their own sort of style. So, 2 calls to action. Number 1, set up a coffee morning. Doesn't have to be, you know, a specific coffee morning, just a coffee morning, like in your local community. Simple post. Simple post. You could do this right now. In fact, let's do this right now. Who wants to, there's a Facebook post, who wants to join our coffee community? And you decide what day it is. You know, Saturday or Sunday is probably best. I don't know. Who wants to join our local coffee community in Maine? I mean, we have one in San Diego. Saying that, there's room for more in San Diego. Who wants to join our? There's a call to action for you on your Facebook. Who wants to join our? You don't have to have it set up. Like, and how many people does it take to start a community? Anyone show me by fingers? One of them is you. So that's your one call to action. The next one, there's so many books on leadership. You know, I can give what I like. Right now, let me look in my phone, because I've switched everything to Audible. So normally I would have a bunch of books that I could hold up. Right now, let me look through my Audible. If you want an Audible book as a gift, because I earn badges, Social Butterfly on Audible. Don't know what that means. If you don't have Audible and want a gift of a book on Audible, hit me up through Facebook Messenger. So, books on leadership right now. Bounce, Matthew Syed. Can't Hurt Me. Anyone know who wrote that? I've not listened to it yet, but I know if Kevin's still on, he knows this guy. David Goggins. The Culture Code, Daniel Coyle. Now here's, The Dichotomy of Leadership. I personally couldn't get into it. That's the Leif Babin and Jocko Willink book, the new one. My favorite so far currently is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And Mastery by Robert Greene, Originals by Adam Grant, 0 to 1, Blake Master. Some of the books by Malcolm Gladwell are not necessarily leadership books. However, you will get great content out of them. 5-Second Rule, Mel Robbins. We all know about that one. There's a good one by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers that's got some parallels in.
Beside my head,
shut up. I'm sure I've got more on this. Principles of Life, Ray Dalio. Couldn't get into it, didn't like the guy's voice. However, it may be good to read. Natural Born Heroes, Christopher McDougall. What else? There's a lot. I've got loads of them, but there's just a few. So here's what to do. Choose your own book. Look at some of the things. Just choose, whether it's a hard book or an Audible type thing or Kindle or whatever it is. Choose it. Get an accountability partner. When you've finished your book, switch books. You guys got that? When you finish your book, switch books. I do want to say, I'll give a shout out to Dawn. I know there's a few of us doing this. This is leadership. We're at an event. I don't know, I can't remember which one it was. And someone mentioned the book. The next thing, Dawn goes out, buys some, sends them as gifts. And now we're all working together on, this is, what's it called? Unlimited Accelerated Manifestation. So leadership is not barking orders or anything else. It's working together for a greater good. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to knock the recording off. Stop recording.